All right, welcome everyone to the Passover Program. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Megan Rodriguez. I'm with Resident Life. Just a few housekeeping tips. One, we are being recorded so that we can show this on channel 1391 tomorrow at 7 o'clock p.m. So if you don't want your video showing, then you could turn that off. Also, during the program, if you can please keep your microphone muted, just so that we minimize background noise. And obviously, if there are times when you're asked to speak or something like that, you're welcome to turn it back on. But I just wanted to give a big thanks to Beth Levine for stepping in and leading this program today. Thank you so much. And we will go ahead and kick this off. So thank you so much, Beth.
All right, thank you for asking me, Megan. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All righty. So hello, everyone. Glad you guys could join us. And Megan asked me to do this recently. And for people who don't know me, there might be a few. My name is Beth Levine, and my mom is Pearl Levine, and she lives here in Independent Living. And I've been pretty active here, especially with assisting with various Jewish type activities. And this to my left is Susan Kirschner. Her mother is Annette Kirschner. She's also a resident here, and Susan and I grew up about 5 minutes from here. So we have known each other our whole lives. And this is Leora, and Leora and Susan are partners, and they are people I've known for a very, very, very long time. So I kind of asked them to help me with this, and it also gives us some time because I don't get to see them very often. And one thing that's been very different for everybody this year has been, the last 2 years has been trying to navigate Pesach in the midst of COVID. And so last year, pretty much nobody was able to see anybody, and we were all separated and doing it on Zoom if we had figured out Zoom by Passover, which some people might not have because it wasn't very far into COVID. This year, we do have some optimism. Some of us are able to be together, which is nice because we're fully vaccinated, but others maybe not. But there is a lot of optimism that next year, hopefully, there will be more the normal tradition for Passover. So I want to start off by a really nice reading that sort of explains the book that you use. There's many different versions of the book that's called the Haggadah. And this is basically the book that is used in the Passover Seder. And so I have a reading that sort of explains what the Haggadah is. Here we are gathered to celebrate the oldest continually practiced ritual in the Western world, to retell what is arguably the best known of all stories, to take part in the most widely practiced Jewish holiday. Here we are as we were last year, and as we hope to be next year. Here we are as night transcends in succession over all of the Jews of the world with a book in front of us. Jews have a special relationship to books, and the Haggadah has been translated more widely and reprinted more often than any other Jewish book. It is not a book of history or philosophy, not a prayer book, user's manual, timeline, poem, or palimpsest. And yet, it is all of these things. The Torah is the foundational text for Jewish law, but the Haggadah is our book of living memory. We are not merely telling a story here. We are being called to a radical act of empathy. Here we are, embarking on an ancient perennial attempt to give human life, our lives, dignity. Here we are, individuals remembering a shared past and in pursuit of a shared destiny. The Seder is a protest against despair. The universe might appear deaf to our fears and hopes, but we are not. So we gather and share them and pass them down. We have been waiting for this moment for thousands of years. More than 100 generations of Jews have been here as we are, and we will continue to wait for it. And we will not wait idly. As you read these words, As our people's ink-stained fingers churn its wine-stained pages, new Haggadahs are being written. And as future Jews at future tables read those Haggadahs, other Haggadahs will be written. New Haggadahs will be Jerusalem.
And here's a fun fact. Do you know that this Passover Seder is the oldest tradition in the Western world, and that the largest Seder, except during COVID, is in Kathmandu, when Chabad has 2,000 Jews from all over the world gather for the Seder.
Very good. So next, the word Seder means order, and so Susan is going to go through the order as it is in the Haggadah.
Right, so this is not just a festive meal, it's a storytelling meal and a meal full of rituals. And all these rituals are done in a very specific order that is printed in the Haggadah on a sort of table of contents. And the order of this service involves at the beginning a series of blessings, and we will only highlight one of those tonight. And then there is a tradition where we have this matzah, and you'll hear a little bit more about it. This is a stack of 3 matzahs, and as part of the service, we will break the middle one, and that one will be hidden. And traditionally, children who participate in the Seder will at some point go and look for the matzah, and for its return, they will bargain for a prize that they will get, and then they will return them the afikomen, it's called, and the Seder can be concluded. After the breaking of the middle matzah, we start telling the story of the service, of the Seder service and our exit from Egypt. And then we take a break from that and we wash our hands and then start eating some ritual foods, followed by actually eating a whole big meal. After the meal, we say the blessing after the meal, get the afikomen back, and say a few last little blessings and the end of the service. And then we all sing a traditional song that we will talk about when we get to the end of this Seder tonight, or this afternoon.
Okay, so then we'll do the Shehechigana.
Yes.
Okay.
Did you want to do the Seder table first?
Oh, sorry. Okay, yes. So the Seder table. Let's see. Okay, so first we're gonna do the 3 matzot. Okay, so I'm gonna explain what's on the Seder table and why. So you have a plate of 3 matzot. So there are 3 pieces of matzah in here. And so 3 matzot. Matzot is the Hebrew way you pluralize matzah. 3 matzot are placed separately in the 3 sections of a ritual matzah cover, or in the folds of an ordinary napkin. Well, I didn't have one of those special kinds of coverings that divides it, so they're stacked, but they really are supposed to be divided, either between napkins or in a special kind of covering that is divided. 2 matzot is recited unto. Then we have a roasted shank bone. So plate has a shank bone, which commemorates the Paschal service our ancestors brought to the Holy Temple on Passover. The Talmud teaches that a beet, which bleeds when it is cut, may be used in place of the shank bone, but I didn't have a beet. So then we have a roasted egg, which symbolizes the festival sacrifice that was brought to the temple and which on Passover supplemented the Paschal lamb. And then maror, the bitter herbs. Yes, yes. The bitter herb symbolizes the bitterness of Israel's bondage in Egypt, and horseradish is most often used as maror. So that's a raw horseradish. Some people get the jarred horseradish. Either one is fine. And then charoset.
No.
You can just
Okay.
show it to Mr. Brown. Okay.
Kinda.
It's usually sort of a apple-based sort of sweet apples and dried fruit and nuts with some wine in it.
The
So
yummy part.
charoset symbolizes the mortar the Israelites used in building the treasure cities for Pharaoh. Typically, it is a sweet paste made of fruits, nuts, spices, and wine or grape juice. And then we have carpas, a vegetable, usually a green vegetable or a peeled potato, is accompanied by a dish of salt water. The vegetable symbolizes the earth's renewal in spring and the sustaining hope of human redemption. The other symbolic foods may also grace the Seder table. For example, Iranian Jews add a plate of scallions reminiscent of our Egyptian taskmakers' whips, or you may add a pomegranate for its many seeds, can symbolize the diversity of the Jewish people, indeed, the diversity of humankind. It reminds us that despite differences, all people deserve a place of dignity in our community.
And since the feminist revolution, we've also added an orange to symbolize,
Behind
yep, an orange, which
Mhm.
symbolizes Miriam and all the other women who played a very essential part
you.
in the Exodus.
And then there's 4 cups of wine that are drunk, 4 different points during the Passover Seder. You drink a glass of wine. So 4 cups of wine or grape juice are drunk during the Seder. They symbolize God's 4-fold promise of redemption. I will bring you forth, I will deliver you, I will redeem you, and I will take you. And then the cup of Elijah symbolizes the hope of redemption and remains unfulfilled until the conclusion of the meal, when it is filled and left untouched. And then also another new tradition, as is the orange. The cup of Miriam is a new tradition. As the cup of Elijah was introduced into our tradition in the late 17th century, we now enrich our tradition with the cup of Miriam, which is filled with spring water to remind us of the legend of Miriam's well. This legend teaches us that whenever our ancestors wandered into the Sinai wilderness, Miriam's well would appear and sustain them. The cup of Miriam symbolizes the many ways we continue to be sustained along freedom's path. And the last thing is a pillow or an uncushioned armchair may be provided for the leader and perhaps for each person at the table as the symbol of comfort associated with freedom. All right, so perfect. So those are all the symbolic things at the table that are part of the Passover Seder. And then we wanted to highlight the Shehecheyanu, which is a very important blessing. It's not only said during Passover, it's said throughout the year. Anytime you are doing the first thing of the year, like the first fruit of the season, the first anything of the year, it's appropriate to say the Shehecheyanu. So we're just gonna say it all together? Yeah. Oh wait, I'll read the translation first. Praise be you, eternal our God, ruler of the world, who has given us life and sustenance and brought us to this happy season. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shehecheyanu, v'kiyemanu, v'higianu, lazman hazeh. Amen. So then, since one of the central themes of Passover is celebrating our freedom from slavery, Leora has a really good reading on that topic.
All right, oh gosh. Okay, so.
She's finding it.
I'm finding it, this is not good. Oh, here we go. So the central theme of the Passover story is freedom. For many modern Jews, Passover is a time to be conscious of the suffering of others. Right now we have, the problem in Myanmar, we've got the problem in Mozambique, all over the world. There's always somebody to save from, to give freedom to, and to understand modern oppression as a continuation of the enslavement of the ancient Hebrews. The central hope for many Jews observing Passover today is that all those who are oppressed will someday find freedom, just like the Jews who were freed from Egypt. It's also a story of returning to the Jewish homeland, the significance of which has changed dramatically over the years.
So, all right, thanks. I really like that reading. So then, one of the other key elements within the Passover Seder is the 4 questions. And it is traditionally, it's a song that is sung traditionally by the youngest child who is in attendance at the Seder, who is willing and able to learn it. So that is often sort of a rite of passage in its own way for kids who are able to learn it and sing it confidently in front of a group of people. So
We'll start together.
Yeah, we'll start together, and then it sort of has verses, and we're gonna take turns. So Ma nishtana halayla mikol halelo mikol halelot shebechol halelot anu ochlin chametz umatzah chametz umatzah halayla hazeh kulo matzah halayla hazeh kulo matzah
שבכל הלילות אנו אוכלים שאר ירקות, שאר ירקות. הלילה הזה כולו מרור. הלילה הזה כולו מרור.
שבכל הלילות איננו מטבילים אפילו פעם אחת.
הלילה הזה שתי פעמים. הלילה הזה שתי פעמים. שבכל הלילות אנו אוכלים בין יושבים ובין מסובין, בין יושבים ובין מסובין. הלילה הזה כולנו מסובין. הלילה הזה כולנו מסובין. And now I will read you the translation of what we just sang. And that is, why is this night different from all other nights? The first one, on all other nights, we eat either leavened bread or unleavened bread. On this night, why do we only eat unleavened bread? So that's the first question. Question number 2, on all other nights, we eat herbs of any kind. On this night, why do we only eat bitter herbs? Number 3, on all other nights, we do not dip our herbs even once. On this night, why do we dip them twice? Number 4, on all other nights, we eat either sitting up or leaning. On this night, why do we eat in a leaning position only?
And before that, Beth said that one of the reasons that this is so popular that's given to the youngest child to read out. But these days, you can also say that it's because the youngest child doesn't already know the answer. And we, of course, have had this 100,000 times, and we want it to be fresh each time.
So typically at this point, we would now spend an hour or two telling the story of Passover. And people in the Seder would start asking questions, and there would be lots of lively discussions about all sorts of things and symbols and parts of the story. We're not going to do that today because we have another 7 minutes. So we're going to skip a lot of it. But basically the story of Passover is one, the narrative part, where the Jews have been slaves in Egypt, and God has decided it's time for the Jews to get out of there. So God goes and talks to Moses through a burning bush. We've all heard that story. And ultimately, God convinces Moses to go to the Pharaoh and tell the Pharaoh to let the Jewish people go. So Moses goes to Pharaoh, and Pharaoh says no. And so Moses says, God, Pharaoh's not listening. And God brings down a plague. And so Pharaoh says, oh my goodness, that's a pretty strong God you've got. Okay, you can go. But almost as soon as he says that, Pharaoh changes his mind. He says, no, you're not going. So this happens for 10 times. And each time God sends out another plague. And each time Pharaoh says, oh, your God is strong. But then he decides maybe the Egyptian gods are stronger. Until finally God brings down the plague of the killing of the firstborn son. And for that part, God tells the angel of death to kill everybody, the firstborn child of every household where there is not lamb's blood that has been smeared onto the doorpost of the house. And that's an important part of the story, because that is an act of defiance by anyone who considers themselves an Israelite, because that the lamb was a holy animal. And so those are the 10 plagues. And after the 10th plague, Pharaoh mostly decides that yes, he's going to let the people of Israel go. He does eventually send his army out after them, but that's when Moses famously divides the Red Sea. The Israelites go through, and the Egyptian army that's waited too long to catch up with them gets swallowed up by the Red Sea. So what we're going to do now is skip all the way through all that story and just go straight to the 10 plagues. And Beth will lead that part.
Okay. All right.
What page is it on?
No.
That right here. Okay.
All right.
So, well, why don't you say it in Hebrew and I'll say it in English? Okay. And so traditionally, what you do to symbolize each plague is you stick your pinky in the wine, and then you tap it on your plate, and each dot symbolizes a dot of blood.
All right. So we start with dam.
Dam, which means blood.
Tzaldea,
Frogs.
Kinin,
Lice.
Arov,
Beasts.
Devel,
Cattle plague.
Shchin,
Boils.
Balad,
Hail.
Arbe,
Locusts.
Choshech,
Darkness.
Makat Bchorot.
Slaying of the firstborn. So, all right. And then we have the cup of Elijah. And let's see, got a little reading for that. As we approach the end of the Seder, the memory of the Exodus gives way to hopes for a messianic future, hopes shared by many faiths and traditions, hopes for a time of peace when all peoples of the world shall live in harmony and be free. In Jewish tradition, the prophet Elijah is God's messenger, appointed to herald the messianic era. He is included in the Seder as a symbol of hope, reconciliation, and trust in the future. We open the door to Elijah, thereby opening our hearts to the power that makes for freedom and redemption for all.
And of course, we also ask Miriam, the prophetess, to enter alongside Elijah.
And then let's go ahead and sing. Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishbi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu Hagilagi, Bimhera b'yameinu, Yavo Eleinu, Imashiach ben David, Imashiach ben David, Eliyahu Nebiah.
Go ahead.
I don't know that part.
No, go ahead in English.
Okay. Oh, read it in English?
Yes.
Okay. Elijah the prophet, Elijah the Tishbite, Elijah the Gileadite. Soon in our time, may he come, bringing with him Messiah. Okay. And then, Diana. Yes. So we're gonna close by singing one of the most popular traditional songs from the Passover Seder, which is Dayenu, and page 19. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe just the first two. Okay, we'll do the first two verses. It's very long. So as is with a lot of songs in the Passover Seder, they have multiple verses, and there can be some people at a Seder who want to be very thorough and do every single verse, and other people that want to get through it faster and just do one or two verses, and then there's those people in between. So there's often discussion and people having to compromise in order to decide how much of any given song you do.
But the basic idea is, if God had only taken us out of Egypt, that would have been enough. But look at all the other things that we got as well.
Oops.
That's Elijah.
Elijah.
Or Miriam.
Or Mother's Dinner. But
Okay.
Ilu hotzianu min Yitzrayim, hotzianu min Yitzrayim, dayenu, 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 dayenu. Ilu hotzianu. Elo sabahem shefatim lo asabe Elohehem lo asabe Elohehem dayenu 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 Elo hanisanu le'eretz Yisrael velo ba'anan lanavet beit ha'kfilah lo ba'anan lanavet beit ha'kfilah dayenu Dayenu, 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 dayenu. All righty.
L'shana haba'ah b'Yerushalayim,
which means next year in Jerusalem.
Amen.
Although next year, we at least all hope that we are COVID-free and celebrate Passover with whatever family and friends you choose to celebrate Passover with. So thank you all for joining us. We greatly appreciate it. And Megan, thank you very much for giving us this opportunity.
Thank you
And
so much.
Thank you, ladies. That was very nice. Thank you very, very much.